Jackson here for WrestleCopia Podcast Network, and I am very excited to announce that we have a brand new podcast coming up in August with the man himself, Dangerous Doug Gilbert. I am getting ready to have some dangerous conversations with this man right here, Doug Gilbert.
Dangerous conversations. That's what it's all about.
Amen.
There are a lot of friends of mine that I've got some stories to tell about even from my childhood growing up till today here in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
That's right. We're going to cover the entire Gilbert legacy. You've had questions. You wanted to know things about Doug, about Eddie, about Tommy, about the Gilbert family in general. And if you tune in to Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, we're going to be telling him stories each and every week. And you never know who from Doug's past or present may be there with us. Join us. WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert.
And there's going to be a lot of friends.
Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to the Retro Wrestling Review Podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and I'm excited to say that while we have had some really great guest co-hosts in the past few weeks, we've had a lot of fun. I'm very proud to welcome back my regular co-hosts, Josh Briley and Richard Mullikin of P3 Radio. There they are.
Man, good to be back,
It's
Gene.
been forever. I mean, you guys have taken off most of the months of June, I'm assuming, to celebrate Pride Month, but you guys are back with a vengeance.
Hey, we gotta back our causes, man. Our causes.
I only say that because we just spent a little bit of time getting some technical difficulties under control, and I could hear, and not necessarily see the guys, but I could hear audio coming through. And at one point, I guess they were trying to figure out video, and Josh said, Richard's trying to stretch me. I didn't know if he meant in the wrestling sense or what.
Dude, he kept widening my angle here, and I was like, hell, stretch me out like the fat man at the fucking carnival. Like, just make me as wide as you can.
I mean, my thing is we're shooting on the exact same webcam, exact same brand, exact same settings, and it looks like I am shooting this from the moon.
Yeah, if you're watching the video cast right now, and if you're not, shame on you, go to YouTube and check out the video cast. And you can see right now that while they have the same webcams, Josh looks to be in HD clarity, and Richard seems to be, on AOL in the 90s over here.
I'm definitely doing something shady on this camera. That's what it looks like.
You look like one of those fucking hostage videos.
If you
I'm expecting you're gonna get beheaded any minute now if we don't move on.
If you see a camera like this pop up on your screen, chances are there's going to be a weird guy showing his penis in like 2 seconds. It's like a grainy penis.
So yeah, guys, it's been a little while since the last time we saw you two. So let's bring you up to speed on a little bit of what you've missed since you've been gone. Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig came to town in a failed attempt to take the King's Unified World title. Brian Christopher brought in Doink the Clown from the WWF, and they wreaked havoc in the studio on all the baby faces, as well as Corey Macklin also. Bruno Mania ran wild on the evil Howard Finkel. And after Brian brought in Doink the Clown and they were unsuccessful in a tag team match, Brian Christopher then brought in Lex Luger to flex for everybody. And rumor has it, he may just be back today. I don't know. We'll have to see how that turns out. Not to mention Josh's favorite, the Bruise Brothers and the Moondogs have swapped the USWA tag team titles nearly every single week since you guys have been gone. Those titles have changed hands. And speaking of theirs, brothers, they've continued to raise the stakes on their potential assault charges against poor Todd Johnson. Just upping the ante on the beatings they've been getting. It seems every week somehow Todd Johnson ends up involved in a Bruise Brothers match, and the beatings just keep getting more severe. I don't know what's going on there, but Miss Texas stripped Bert Prentice naked in a street fight before eventually losing to him in a boxing match. Hate you missed that. A guitar was broken on Jeff Jarrett, not by Jeff Jarrett. So things were a little different in 93 than they would come to be later on. Eddie and Doug Gilbert are currently feuding with each other. I'm guessing they showed up, took one look around the locker room and go, yeah, maybe we should just feud with ourselves. Plus, we saw some pretty fun rap videos teasing the impending arrival of JC Ice and Sir Wolfie D, PG-13. So is there any of that you guys would like to speak on or that you hate you missed?
Honestly, man, it unlocked some core memories, dude, because I had kind of fallen out watching Memphis wrestling every Saturday morning by this point. And, you know how things are when you're a kid, like you just kind of bounce around from, I'll watch this, I'll do this, I'll do that. But my grandmother, she made it a point because she taped every Saturday morning show. I mean, that just something she did. I don't ever recall ever seeing her watch it back, but she had fucking tape after, just stacks of tape from just recording every show. And I remember she called me on the phone like a Saturday night after this 2 weeks ago on the show that we're at now. And she said, the WWF wrestlers are coming to Memphis. You need to start watching. And I went over her house that Sunday and I got the tape of when Doink made his appearance. And dude, I watched that over and over again. I loved all the pranks that he was playing. He got Lawler with the nanner peel and all that stuff and fucking with Corey. I absolutely loved it. And then I made sure I tuned in live, for this past week's episode, watching Saturday. And when Luger came out, my little 10-year-old mind just fucking flipped. I could not believe Lex Luger was gracing his presence in because the WCW, WWF guys, they had that mystique about them. It was like they were something, not that Memphis wrestlers, I don't want to be derogatory when I say they're something above Memphis wrestlers, but for the most part, it just seemed like they were on a higher plane. It's like, dude looked like an action figure walking through the curtain.
Yep.
And then he takes the jacket off and
then Josh's pants tinted.
Listen, knowing that he was even a heel, you hear that shriek of the women.
Oh yeah.
Wow, even in the Channel 5 studio. So yeah, it brought me back, man. I loved reviewing those last 2 weeks.
I've been saying that for a while that, we had seen, a lot of the WWF guys started out in, Memphis. So we had seen them there either, before their tenure. Steve Austin was in the studio at one time. Hulk Hogan was in the TV studio at one time. But Luger having been synonymous with WCW, it just felt weird seeing Lex Luger having had the run he had in WCW suddenly in the TV5 studio. I don't know. Something about that seemed just different to me. So I'm kind of glad that you kind of see that the same way. And I got to say, of everything we've done so far, the Doink episode is the most fun. I can't think of another Memphis episode that was more fun because the shenanigans just goes on through the whole episode. And it was like that whole episode featured that character. And I don't know that WWF even ever managed to feature Doink and accentuate all the aspects of that character the way that episode of USWA did. Because you saw the silly pranks, you saw the promo that goes from serious to ha-ha, back to serious to scary. You got to see him in the ring where he's goofing around, squirting somebody with a flower on the way out there. Then he's stretching somebody in the ring. And you can tell, even if you're not a real smart fan and you don't know this is Matt Bourne, but this guy can go. Like, he's not some goofy clown, So, yeah, I actually had, there was kind of some angling amongst the potential guest co-host on who was going to get the Doink episode. So Ray Russell ended up winning out on that because Jamie Ward ended up being busy. So he had a lot of fun with that. And like I said, the Rock and Roll Phantom has showed up now, and he's busting guitars over Jeff Jarrett, which is ironic. And I don't know if you guys have seen that episode or that clip. But that wasn't those balsa wood guitars that Jeff was cracking over people in WCW. That looked like Don Bass had that guitar in the closet from when he was a kid or something.
This is granddad's.
It just shatters Jeff's skull with it. Like, holy cow. I don't know when I've ever felt so bad for somebody over a guitar shot. It looks every bit as brutal as the one that Jake the Snake still complains about to this day. Put him on the path to being a drug addict when the honky tonk man broke that guitar over his head in the snake pit in '87. So that gets us up to speed, guys. So let's go right now. Let's talk about the February 20th, 1993 episode of USWA Championship Wrestling. Corey and Dave lets us know what to expect today, and then they throw to our first commercial break of the day, which we always do. And when we return, Dave Brown is joined by Doug Gilbert, who, as I mentioned, he has fell into a feud with his brother Eddie. And, he says that last week he was running his mouth when he should have been listening. And he's been thinking a lot about the company he's been keeping. So let's hear some clips from Doug's promo, and I'll be interested to get you guys' take on this feud between the Gilbert brothers here in 1993.
Gilbert is out here, and Doug, you have something you need to say to the fans?
Yeah, Dave, first of all, I want to tell you, I'm sorry about a few things I said last week. I was running my mouth when I should have been listening. Eddie sat out here and he said a lot of things and made me think about a lot of things, Dave. When I was young, I run around with a wild group of people, and he'd tell me, he said, Doug, if you don't watch what you're doing, you're going to get in trouble. Dave, I thought a lot about that. He tells me last week, he says, you need to watch what you're doing and everything. So I look back, I look who I'm running around with. Running around with the Harris brothers, which, everybody says they're a bad company. You run around with Bert Prentice and Mike Samples. Everybody says they're a bad company. You run around with Lex Luger and Brian Christopher. And Brian Christopher, all he does, he carries me with him because he's a punk. And when he gets in a fight, Dave, I'm the one that has to fight. But later on in the week, I did fight my brother, right, Dave? I wrestled him. But I did draw my fist back, and I hit him, Dave.
You did.
And I should never have done that. But on the latter part of the week, I talked to my mother, and she said, son, I didn't bring you and Eddie up to be fighting each other. And I said, no, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm real sorry about that. And I said, I told him I didn't even want to wrestle him again, but it's done booked, and I've got to wrestle. But I told my mother, Dave, I said, I will never draw my fist back at my brother ever again. I would never do that. And see, my brother right now, Dave, a lot of people don't know, he's still not even talking to me. But that's why I asked you for a minute out here this morning, because I do want to tell him, Dave, he will always be my brother, and I do love him.
Well, there's a word from Doug Gilbert. After his attitude last week, it's refreshing to hear the things that he had to say, not only to the fans but also to his brother. So if Eddie's listening, I hope.
All right, so what do you guys take on the feud we've started here with Eddie and Doug Gilbert?
I think the feud's going to be great because the Gilberts, you know what I mean, like Eddie and Doug. But I remember as a kid, and even now, I didn't believe any of that speech, because who amongst us hasn't had that uncle that shows up to Easter, picks a fight with one of his brothers, and then has to apologize to the grandmother, oh, we ain't gonna do that again. I ain't gonna ball my fist up and hit my brother anymore. I'm so sorry I ruined Easter. And then by Mother's Day, which is only like a month and a half away, it's happening again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like somebody cheats at wiffle ball and somebody throws a brick bat at them, and it's just chaos. It's just chaos. It's a Southern thing. You don't believe it when you hear people make comments that they say in the South, I'm not going to fight again. It doesn't matter. In the South, you're going to fight anybody if they make you mad enough. So, I mean, I just wasn't buying it as a kid.
Josh?
Yeah, man. It did sound sincere, and he has been, acting crazy with Eddie and stuff. And you figure, being a Southern gentleman, and he was probably raised right, he's not going to lie to his mama. So I believe him when he said, I will never draw my fist back at him. And I do love you, Eddie. I do believe all that. But around when was it? Was it around? No, this was before Owen and Brett, I guess. So, yeah, I was going to make a comparison, but it don't count because it was before. But yeah, I wanted
He'll work
to.
it out.
I wanted to believe Doug. I really did.
Yeah.
I thought, well, he's seen his error in his ways.
I wanted to believe my Uncle Gerald. Just that's the way it soaks out. He believed it when he said it at Easter.
It is true.
But one or two natty lights, sometimes that contract looks null and void.
All bets are off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a well-delivered promo by Doug Gilbert. At the same time, it's in the back of my head, I'm thinking Eddie Gilbert, one of his favorite go-to angles over the years. He did it with Tommy Rich. He did it with the Nightmares and Continental as the classic angle where there's a turn. And then the guy who did the other one wrong comes out and he apologizes and he's seen the error of his ways. And then he ends up turning on them again. So I'm like, I don't know, Doug. I don't know if I'm going to buy this. But to their credit, it's not executed in quite the same way because in those other two examples, it happened immediately on camera. They did the apology and they immediately turned on him. So Eddie's not out here. So right now, we just have to take Doug at his word. They got to wrestle. The match has already been signed, and Lord knows you can't unsign a match here in Memphis once it's happened. It's official. But he promises there's going to be a wrestling match. It's not going to be a fight. He's not going to raise his fist to him. So we shall see. But next up, we've got Josh's favorites. As we have documented here on the show, while you guys have been gone, it's come up a few times that my regular co-host Josh Briley is just not a fan of the Bruise Brothers, and last week's special guest co-host Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab brought up that he has court documents that he forwarded to me where one of the Harris brothers sued a Nashville plastic surgeon over what he called a botched tit job. I mean, I guess it was one of the Harris brothers got pec implants and it went awry, and he ended up suing the plastic surgeon, and that's why for a good while one of the Harris brothers was always wearing a t-shirt. I told him, I was like, well, Josh will get a kick out of that if nothing else, because
those guys don't scream pec implant. You know what I mean?
At no point.
I never seen those guys being like just jacked to the gills or anywhere close to be like, I need some bigger pecs. Like,
but this was on in their WCW era where they were a lot bigger, where they were like creative control or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe one had been hitting the gym harder than the other and he was just trying to match him or something. I haven't taken the time to read through this huge set of documents he sent me.
But we are noting that they will go there if you let them. They'll take your ass to court.
They will.
So I probably should shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of letting that be known as a warning. Like, hey man, you might want to ease it up on these Harris brothers because you might get served when you walk out of your house and you're like, you've been served by the Harris brothers. Brother.
Hey man, your name ain't Josh Briley, is it? You got a town, brother. I'm gonna say no.
You walk outside, you're like, what the hell's Mike Samples doing on my porch? And he's like, you've been served.
Oh my God. That's another story, brother.
So anyway, as the graphic comes up for our next match, it reads, I don't know if you guys caught this. I always pay attention to this for some reason, but it says that Ron and Don Harris versus Stingray Steve and Mark the Shark. And as I saw that, I could not wait to see Stingray Steve and Mark the Shark come through the curtain. Unfortunately, it was a tag team that they referred to as Steve and Glenn Richards, who were pretty vanilla compared to Stingray Steve and Mark the Shark, or at least what I pictured in my head when I read those two names.
With those names, I see cartoon characters.
I see the Coastal Connection.
Yeah.
Why couldn't that be the Coastal Connection?
So I was like, here we go. This is fixing to get exciting right out of the jump. But then, like, now here comes Steve and Glenn Richards. And while you guys have been gone, and some people may start to get mad about this, I might start getting some hateful emails, but like, I haven't been showing a lot of Harris Brother clips because, like, nothing against the guys. Like, I don't have anything against them, but I mean, these matches are getting kind of redundant. They just beat the hell out of these poor enhancement guys every week. And, once you've seen that a few times, you don't need to see clips of it every week. So once again, I don't have any clips. Mike Samples got on the microphone and promises that next week we're going to see a bald Richard Lee right here on television because his hair's on the line this week. If you want to see a bald Richard Lee, look through that grainy picture on your screen there.
Looking like committed federal crimes on this camera.
You'll see a bald Richard Lee. So yeah, this was the typical Harris Brothers squash we've become accustomed to. They beat on them for a couple minutes, and then they pin one of the Richards brothers. I don't know if it was Steve or Glenn. I don't know that it matters. After the big double boot. After the match, the Harris brothers continued to beat down on these poor bastards until Eddie Marlin comes out and threatens Mike Samples with a fine. And this ended things in a hurry. Like, usually they don't really care about that, but he's like, I'm going to fine you. And Mike Samples is like, shut it down. Let's go. And they immediately left. It was the most authority Eddie Marlin appeared to ever have in all the times I've been watching USWA. So that was pretty fun. So Dave Brown sends us to another break. And when we return, Bert Prentice leads the Southern Heavyweight Champion, Brian Christopher, out there, who lets us know that he's upset that last week when he brought Lex Luger out here in this studio, the studio audience didn't show him the proper respect. So today he has specific instructions on how they should treat him when Lex Luger makes his grand entrance. So let's hear the instructions that Brian has for this studio audience on how to properly show respect for the narcissist, Lex Luger.
When I bring him out here, okay, what I want is, I want this section over here. I want this section. I want you to get down on your knees, and I want you to start doing like this.
Don't hold your breath.
I want this section to do that, and I want this section over here. I want you to all stand up and start giving him a standing ovation, okay? Then we're gonna see if you imbeciles can follow directions. And right now, here's your cue. Get down on your knees, stand up. Right now, I want to introduce the most perfect wrestler in the world today, the greatest man in the world today, the narcissist himself, Lex Luger. Stand up.
I don't see anybody standing. Here is Lex Luger. The narcissist.
There's two big studs running around here by the name of Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler. But they just think that they're studs because this week, me and Lex have decided to get in the ring together and take care of the sissy boy and the so-called king. It's going to be 2-on-2, and we're going to show you why we're the best and why he is the narcissist.
Image.
First reactions to that.
Well, I know Josh was excited. I mean, because as much as he talked this man up, you would have thought Josh would have went out there with some baby oil and helped oil down those biceps. But yeah, I mean, that's a big moment, Lex Luger, I was a huge fan of Lex Luger when I was a kid, WCW Lex Luger. I didn't really get into the WWF.
You
Lex
wasn't
Luger.
riding the Lex Express?
I was not riding the Lex Express, but I mean, to have him come out there and like I was just telling Josh, I was like, it's strange to look at this picture now, knowing where we're at, because we still feel like it's, we're in that time frame. And he's like, both Brian and Bert are gone, Corey's gone, Luger's there, but Luger, he's had that injury, and it's like, man, you hate to, you just forget how moments were in life, and like when Luger come out there, he was just larger than life, like Josh said too, but he was also wearing the same thing he wore last week. So
that's
could have been sleeping in his car.
That's immediately what I noticed. Like when I'm watching this live as a 10-year-old kid, I'm like, he's wearing the same jacket.
That's what struck
hell?
me is like they didn't pre-tape like 2 weeks in a row back then. We were live every week. I'm like, so Once
Luger
again, he's in
just
the
like-
same acid wash jeans, fanny pack, and New Japan Pro Wrestling windbreaker that he had on last week, which was, very odd because all that stood out heavily the previous week. The thing that I thought was funny, Brian's going to give these people instructions. He's got half the people getting on their knees. He's got the other half clapping. I'm like, okay, these instructions are because they go, okay, here he comes. Get on your knees. Stand up. And Bert goes charging over there. I'm assuming Bert was going to help the half that were getting on their knees to show them how that needs to take place. But, I'm sorry. But anyway, Brian did a great job. I said this to the guys last week when we talked about, Luger's last appearance. Like, it's a wonder Brian didn't get himself a job going to the WWF to help hype Lex Luger because, man, he put him over huge last week. He put him over huge this week. And, and Bobby Heenan was a great manager for him. But if he just had Brian there as a hype man, behind him and, pumping him up, like, he did an excellent job here playing Luger's right-hand man. So, I thought this was a lot of fun. I don't think, correct me if you guys have heard, I don't think I've ever heard anyone refer to Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett as studs before until Brian Christopher said it in this promo. I've heard a lot of adjectives for Lawler and Jarrett, but I've never heard them referred to as studs. So I'm sure that didn't hurt their feelings any. But
Now,
but
is this Lex Luger or Lex Luger? Because you remember on the Chiron, they promoted Lex Luger, and it was spelled like sugar with an L.
Ironically, I happened to notice on the second viewing of this that, yes, that first time they got, you could either call it Lex Luger or Lex Lugar, if you will. But, yes, it was Lugar, but somebody clued them in because the second go around it actually was spelled correctly, which very rarely did they ever correct the Chiron on these things. Usually if there was a just obvious misspelling. So I'm thinking that probably Luger himself saw it and like, it's not how you spell my name, stupid. It's Luger. And they went and had to correct it because normally I've seen way more heinous misspellings than that. They've gone up 3 or 4 times in an episode. So I feel like that was probably at Luger's demand, like, fix my name. Of course, it used to be in the magazines like that sometimes too.
Yeah.
So not the first. So I figured maybe that was a sore spot with him. So right now, before we get to hear from Lex, Brian wants us to take a look at how Jeff Jarrett cost him. And you guys missed out on this. Last week, Brian Christopher gets his very first one-on-one match with the King for the unified heavyweight title. And, man, on last week's episode, it was the Brian Christopher show. Brother, he was in almost every segment for like the first 40 minutes of the show. Every single segment featured Brian Christopher. Brian was all over this show. But he cut a promo saying how he was going to be the new king, that, Lawler was past his prime. It was time for him to step aside and let the new king take hold, which is kind of ironic thinking about this in 93, because Lawler was still wrestling, if bless his heart, if his health wasn't in the shape it's in now, I think Lawler would still be out there not putting people over to this very day. But let's take a look at highlights and see how Jeff Jarrett cost Brian Christopher his unified championship match.
And that Jeff Jarrett really, really makes me mad because he is the one that cost me the World Unified title. I guess you ain't got the tape of where Jeff Jarrett came down there and screwed me out of the belt. I had the belt won, I would have been the world champion.
Well, as a matter of fact, we do have that videotape, and I want to talk to Lex.
You got it?
But you want to watch the videotape? Let's watch the videotape right here.
Show that. You stay right there.
Christopher grabs referee Paul Neighbors and shoves Paul into the turnbuckles over there. Goes out to Lawler. Kicks him right in the midsection and nail it away on the King. Series of rights from Christopher. Another right hand from Brian Christopher. Nail it away on Jerry Lawler. Look at Lawler. Plays Christopher out. Right hand from Lawler, and Christopher grabs referee Paul Neighbors from the King. Comes off the ropes again, and Prentice trips the king up. Brian Christopher dropped one at elbow. Paul dropped the king, it looks like. Here comes Jeff Jarrett, though. Jeff's got that good talk. Lawler rolls Christopher up. He got it. 1, 2, 3. 24 minutes and 32 seconds. The king, Jerry Lawler, retains the unified world heavyweight title in 24.
Well,
You see what I'm talking about? Jeff Jarrett had to come down there, and he cost me the world belt. He cost me the world belt.
he didn't touch you. I want to.
Jeff,
I've heard enough. I want to.
Jeff Jarrett, that guitar.
I will say, Brian has a legit gripe here because that highlight was just the best of him whipping Jerry's ass until Jeff came down and distracted him. Like, where's the lie? To quote CM Punk, tell me when I start telling lies. And
Yeah.
all of that sounded true. I mean,
Now Jeff's going to come out later on and really say what really happened, and he has a point.
also, I don't focus on tights. I don't try not to focus on the gear and stuff. But whoever made Lawler and Brian's gear definitely got like a 2-for-1 at like Michael's or wherever he brought the fabric from, because it was the same color and the same like material as his trunks were as Brian's tights, that purple. It was the same color, which is odd.
And both of them have so many things that compare the gears. Like, why would y'all wear that against each other in the same night? Like, because at this point, they haven't even alluded to the fact that Brian is Jerry Lawler's son. I mean, Lawler made a couple of cracks in his promos about, I'm going to whip you like you should have got a long time ago, and kind of like a half-ass wink to the camera, but not enough that if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. But I can see if they were tagging together, then that gear would have made sense. But against each other, I thought the same thing you did. Like, I wouldn't have wore this tonight in the same match when you guys are against each other. And clearly somebody made both sets of gear out of the same material. But
they got them on the same day, and they're like, "We're wearing them. We're wearing them tonight. This is all we got. We didn't bring our real gear."
But yeah, apparently nobody's clued Jeff Jarrett in on the whole balsa wood guitar. He comes out here rocking an electric guitar, which would have ended Brian's life.
Yeah, you should see the head flatten and his brain matter go everywhere.
Oh my God.
Brian would have been in a wheelchair like Dr. Troy Graham for the next.
Now I can see Jake's gripe if fucking Honky hit him with one like that on the snake.
Yeah.
Damn.
Like, yeah, smoke some more crack, Jake, because that would have been rough. Definitely would have been rough. The old electric guitar today. I just got tickled how Corey said, "Oh, guitar." All right. So without any further ado, because I know how much you guys hate to do, let's hear from the Narcissist, WWF superstar, former WCW World Champion, Lex Luger.
You know, Brian, I think I can sum all this up for everybody right here and everybody out there. The odds have been evened up and then some. You have nothing to worry about anymore. Because you see, what I just saw on tape there was 2-on-1 with a guitar. Yeah. The odds have been totally, abundantly evened up. Because you see, when I came in and I said there was a couple studs, like you said, Jeff Jarrett and Jerry, the so-called King Lawler. Well, I love establishing my dominance and superiority over so-called studs. That's what I do best. And now, what they are is a couple big fish in a very small pond. But now you're going to look at what is the biggest fish in the biggest pond of professional wrestling. The superstar of the 90s, the man of the 90s, the narcissist, Lex Luger. Now, what we're going to do, Brian, is we're going to humiliate and dominate them like they have never been dominated before. And that is what's going to happen when we step in the ring with those two.
I cannot wait. Jarrett and Lawler, you see this man? Nobody can beat this man. And you can't beat me either. We're going to take care of you this week.
And now, Brian, let me tell you something. If anybody has an eye for talent in the sport of professional wrestling, it's the narcissist Lex Luger. Now, don't be so humble. It was your idea. to wrestle both at once to establish my superiority all at the same time. It was your idea. And let me tell you something. This man has the intelligence. He has the wrestling skills. He's going to go somewhere. He won't be in a small pond for very long. This man here is going to be big things. We're going to start off with Jarrett and Lawler right here, right now.
And that's the word from Lex Luger. I thought it was probably his idea. We'll see you in the ring. We'll be back here with more action in a moment.
So last week, Luger stumbled all over the word superiority. So this week, he's really doubling down on showing everybody that he got it sorted out during the week. He can now say superiority. He tells us in the beginning of the promo that one of his favorite things is to establish dominance and superiority over studs. And Bert's like, me too, brother. But,
man. It really sounded like he was going to hump Lawler and Jarrett in the ring, didn't it?
Show him.
It was some strange threats. As a matter of fact, when you hear these lines later on,
I gotta admit, Jeff, I am so impressed with this man's body. I'm gonna break you open like a hot biscuit, boy. I gotta admit, Jeff.
yeah, you almost kind of understand it after hearing what Luger said to them. You're like, okay, now I understand why Jeff said that. But So what do you guys think of Lex? Because Luger has never been known for his superior promo skills, but I thought he did all right in these last couple of weeks here in Memphis. What do you guys think?
He got the job done. And here's the thing. He comes across like Mike Tyson. Mike was not the best with words, but he didn't have to be because he focuses his time. He didn't go to English class. He went to whip people's ass. And that's what Luger did. So I think Luger got a bad rap. And I think I've heard Cornette speak on this before too. If you were to throw Luger into today's talent, God, he's going to look like a man amongst boys because of his size. And he's not as bad. I mean, none of that was written for him. You know what I mean? They probably give him bullet points. So if you look at it that way, it's like, yeah, he did great. For what
and once he takes that jacket off, what does he even have to say? I mean, just take the jacket off. Like, all right, what are we doing?
Should have heard.
I was pretty rude to those people in the studio audience to chant steroids at him.
Yeah,
I thought.
Josh gasped like he saw as the love of his life. I was good God. See that collar?
I'm sure Bert did too. Like, oh my goodness.
And Josh's breathing changed when that jacket came off.
Well, Josh did tell us that's his favorite manager, and I thought that kind of revealed some things to us, probably. But but no, Luger was quite impressive here. But I tell you something that once he pointed it out, I remember it, and now I can't unsee it every time I see a Luger promo. And he did it worse last week than he did this week. But Shivani pointed out on his podcast and he's done it in every promo he's ever done in his life. And of course he does it here. He takes it across.
Like he's putting some kind of spell on him.
It's so funny. And I dare you to find a Lex Luger promo where he doesn't do it. I mean, multiple times usually, but at least a couple of times. And he certainly came through with it here, which is cracks me up. But anyway, let's go ahead and take our first podcast commercial break. And when we return, we're going to see our favorite enhancement guy, Mr. Clyde, in action.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/wrestlepod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
All right, you hear a word from our great sponsors. And, guys, so like I said, I mentioned, we're going to see Mr. Clyde in action, and he's going to be taking on Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. And despite the fact that I saw Eddie Gilbert wrestle as a face in, Jim Crockett Promotions back in the day, it still feels very weird seeing Eddie as a babyface here in Memphis, coming out in the studio and getting cheered and waving to fans and, high-fiving them. Is it just me, or does that feel a little off to you guys as well?
Never, ever, ever trust Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. I learned that really quick. And dude, Lawler had to get hit by a car from the son of a bitch. I mean, like, that should show you right there what he's willing to do. You can't trust him.
Man, that's one of my favorite stories in wrestling history, is the whole story and the build up to Eddie and Doug running over Lawler with the car in the parking lot. Eddie Gilbert did what many consider to be the very first shoot interview in history with Bob Barnett back in the day. And if you've never seen it, it's on YouTube. You can Google, you can search on YouTube Eddie Gilbert shoot interview. And
it looks like Richard's camera right now.
Yeah, it looks like where Richard's at right now. It's a dark hotel room. In the beginning, they try to light it, and the lamp keeps dying. They finally just say, screw it, and just go with it.
Fun fact about that interview, that was shot here in Jackson, Tennessee during our notorious 94 ice storm. It was in February.
I did not know that.
He says that in that interview.
That is a fun fact. I forgot about that. But Eddie tells the story, from beginning to end in that interview. When I was working on a book about Eddie Gilbert, I talked to numerous people who were there that day about it. I've heard Doug Gilbert's version, and we'll talk a little bit more about this at the end of the program today. But I'm going to be talking to Doug Gilbert about a lot of stuff pretty soon, and that is definitely one of the stories I want him to recount. Because my favorite part of Eddie telling that story in that shoot interview is when he says he jams on the gas. It wasn't his car, so the car takes off quicker than he expects. Lawler rolls off the side of the windshield and hits the ground. They stop at the edge of the drive there, right there at Union Avenue. Doug looks back and Eddie goes, "Is he okay?" And Doug says, "I think you killed him." And Eddie wheels out. Eddie wheels out of the parking lot full speed. But yeah, the fact that they borrowed Brian Lee's car, which was a borrowed car, to do that angle and ended up busting the windshield out. There's just a lot of fun stuff in that story. I can't wait for people to hear it if you haven't heard it before. But here in this match, Eddie has a little fun with Mr. Clyde here at the beginning. A few little fun spots there. And in the end, Eddie hits Mr. Clyde with a bulldog for the win, which wasn't something we've seen Eddie use as a finish a lot, but I'm guessing he didn't want to try to get Mr. Clyde up for the old hot shot over the top rope. So we get a bulldog win. And then you guys aren't going to believe this, but right here on TV, we had a run in a match. Check this out.
And Eddie Gilbert goes after it. Oh, a bulldog.
Big bulldog, and boy, I think that's the last mistake that broke the camel's back. Well, that's the straw that did it.
Eddie Gilbert. Look out, Samples headed for the ring with the Harris brothers.
Here comes the Harris brothers and Mike Samples. Eddie Gilbert holding his own in there. 3 against 1. Oh, boy.
They've got him hammered down to the mat now. It's 3 against 1. Samples and the Harris brothers all of a sudden hit the ring. I don't know what Samples' idea is, but he really was going after Eddie Gilbert.
Oh, they pick Eddie up there. Big pile drive on Eddie.
Man, he's going to need some help.
Yeah. We need some help for Eddie in here.
Here comes Doug. Maybe there's some help for him as he heads for his brother.
What in the world is Doug Gilbert doing?
Hey, I got friends. I'm the king of rock. I don't apologize to nobody. Yes, I said I loved him, but you gotta beat some sense into some people's head.
Oh, come on, Doug. Doug Gilbert cheering on his brother.
I thought he was coming out here to help his brother. He's out here and claiming that he doesn't apologize for anything.
Hey, Dave, I told you I was the king of rock, and look what's happening. I've got good friends. What's going on?
Yeah, I think he's got some friends now, though, Doug. Here comes the Moondogs and Richard Lee. Well, Big Trash Can and Ford leveling away on the Bruise Brothers and Mike Samples. Split the board on the Bruise Brothers. And, boy, we've got ourselves a brawl, Moondog style. Ball and Splat and Richard Lee come out, jump on the Harris brothers.
Now, you're not going to believe me, but my Uncle Freddie made the exact same Mike spiel as Doug there did at Mother's Day. You know, sometimes you just got to beat the sense out of King of Rock and Roll and everything. He made the exact same, did the exact same dance, everything. Everything my uncle did. That's why I didn't believe the speech at the beginning.
I mean, we thought he was coming out to make the save. The Gilbert brothers are going to be united, and he breaks into that awful gyrating King
Booty
of Rock
spell that he did.
gyrating that he does. I can't wait to talk to him about that. I want to hear the whole story of how the King of Rock and Roll came to be, why it came to be, and where who told him he needed to do that dancing, and when they told him he needed to stop.
I kind of honed in on something else with the Moondogs, man. It was like they took a waste paper can that you keep at the bottom of the bed. It was the smallest trash can I'd ever seen. Like
They
was saying
robbed Brenda from accounting's
I was
waste.
just fixing to say, that was sitting next to somebody's desk in the TV studio a
Oh
few
my
minutes
God.
prior. And come Monday morning when she came to work, it's like caved in on the side and it's like barely standing up next to her desk. What happened to my garbage can?
Randy, somebody's dented my garbage can and they've broken my board that I keep over here. What the hell? Can't have nice
Worst
things.
time keeping these 4x4s in there. Another new development while you guys were away, we got a new Moondog. Moondog Splat showed up, and
do we ever figure out what legit happened to the other one during this time?
From all the research that I've been able to do, he did legit get injured, and wasn't going to be able to wrestle for a while. Apparently, he was a mechanic from Nashville. Was his day job when he wasn't moondogging around the USWA.
Imagine having to go to his shop and be like, "Look, this shit ain't working. What? I don't know what you fixed, but it's not working." He hits you over the fucking head with a board.
Yeah, I'll say you get a chair upside the head,
chewing on the air filter.
As Richard Lee's drawing up your invoice over there, singing country music at you. But yeah, Moondog Splat, who when he first turned up, I was like, I remember he was somebody else. Who was he? And then I realized it was the Mighty Goliath of Big Bubba and Goliath fame. That was his previous incarnation in Memphis, and then he returns as a Moondog years later. So that's a little bit of fun trivia for you. Or it's trivia. I don't know if it's fun, but anyway, if he looked familiar, that's why he was. But he's by far the biggest Moondog that we ever saw, and I always feel like they kind of rib Samples and the Harris brothers, because this is like the third time that I've seen them out there stomping on people, and you can tell Samples is completely blown up and he can barely stomp before they finally come running in and start hitting them with the trash cans and the boards and all that stuff. But yeah, if I had kept a running total of how many times the Moondogs have run in on the Bruise Brothers or the Bruise Brothers have run in on the Moondogs, I wouldn't have enough fingers and toes now to have kept count of all of them. It is a weekly occurrence. And so we've been going back and forth with the tag titles are on the line against the other manager's hair. And then that team wins the belts. So the next week, the belts are against the other manager's hair. And we've just gone back and forth on it. And I guess this week, we'll see what the stakes are, because you can guarantee, you may not know a lot, but you can bet each and every week, you're going to see the Bruise Brothers meet the Moondogs in some shape, form, or fashion in USWA 1993. And I'm just curious to see how many weeks and months we let this rock on, because so far there seems to be no end in sight. So how are y'all feeling about that feud right now? Are you still pretty psyched about it? Are you as amped about it as you was in the beginning of the podcast?
My hate for the Bruise Brothers has not changed, and if anything, it's inflated just from their presence still on the show facing the Moondogs. And I like the Moondogs, but anytime the Bruise Brothers are on TV, I'm turning it. I absolutely despise them.
So, serious business right now. I have had a couple of wrestlers who listen and watch our podcast, and at least 4 different just viewers of the podcast or listeners of the podcast have messaged me on the Facebook page and said, is the thing with Josh hating the Harris Brothers, is that a bit? Is that like a running bit y'all are doing? I'm like, no, it's not a bit.
100% truth.
And here's the thing.
Yes.
I love the Bruise Brothers. I thought they were awesome. I thought they were, I just liked their look, even though one of them choked me once. I should be the one that just hey, one of them put me in a rear naked choke because he thought I was a fan. So yeah, I mean, I should be the one, but I like the Harris Brothers. And Josh is like, I can't, no, don't like them. Don't like their look. Don't like anything about them.
They are aids to my eyes.
I'm waiting for it to come out that they did something cross to Uncle Danny, and we're just not hearing about it yet. And then
that's not the case.
And Josh will be like, all right, that's why I hate them, because of that time they beat up Uncle Danny. And I'm curious if the one who choked you is the one who had the botched tit job. I don't think the two could be related, but it would just be ironic if that was the same one.
Just to say, hey, why are you hugging me like I'm a doctor that performed a malpractice procedure on you?
Do you happen to know which one choked you, Richard? Was it Don or Ron?
It was, so I was doing that bit. So I did this bit, Brian, when I was very young in wrestling, took me to TNA and beat me up in the front row. And then they had security come out, and some of them were helpful. And then I just feel this large arm like a rear naked choke go against my throat, and he's pulling me with force to the back. And finally somebody goes, no, bring him over here. It's just real calmly. But yeah, he was, I could see my grandmother and stuff, and she wasn't even dead yet, but she was telling me it's going to happen soon.
She wasn't dead yet.
No.
So just to clarify, folks, I don't mean to question Richard's storytelling here, but Brian was on this TNA show, and he placed Richard in the front row as a fan. And if somebody's this half-ass listening, they're like, so Brian invited Richard to a TNA show, and they were watching it, and then he beat him up in the front row, and the Harris brother helped him? Like, man, that was shitty. So
they have a TNA channel on, it's Pluto TV and Samsung TV and stuff like that. I saw what he's talking about.
Oh, is it on there?
Last week. They
nice.
But see, I've never seen it in its entirety. I've only saw what you could see on YouTube, but they showed a little preview of the angle Brian was in, which was god awful. It was with some woman, and he was trying to win her love or something, but he was proving himself to be unstable, and he'd lash out and stuff. And then I see Richard get his ass tore the fuck up on the big screen. I'd never seen it that big on the screen.
And then a Harris brother choked me. It was great. Great night.
Brother. But he still likes them, damn it. And I think that's good that you don't hold grudges. Josh is holding it for you, apparently. But anyway, my father-in-law watches TNA on there quite often, and he's 88 years old, and he doesn't realize that that's not current TNA. That's from years ago, and he'll try to tell me about it like it's shit that just happened. Like, all right, Brian Christopher choked that guy from your podcast last week. It's like, oh man, that Brian's not. Just never mind.
You know a guy named Sonny Sayaki?
That kid's going to go places. Like, no, he's not. Raymond, he's really not. And he's like, I got a show on there that's all girls wrestling on there. I'm like, yeah, they do. I know they do for some reason. So we take another break, and when we come back, Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler come out for a promo, and Jeff's pretty heated when they get out here. Let's hear a little bit of what Jeff has to say towards Brian Christopher.
With Brian and the guitar and all of that.
Dave, I just want to jump right into it. It seems like I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired of listening to Brian Christopher come out here week after week after week. And he comes out here and he twists the truth just a little bit. No, he just comes out sometimes and have some bold-faced lies. Now, Brian, film clips do not lie. And that's exactly right. I came down because I watched Jerry's back and he watches my back. That's exactly right, Brian. I never interfered in the match and I never got in the ring, and you got your shoulders pinned 1, 2, 3. Me and Jerry are a tag team and we'll remain a tag team. But Brian Christopher, it seems real. That's right. Brian Christopher, it seems real convenient that I guess the USWA doesn't have the film clip of what happened earlier in the night when I was wrestling the Rock and Roll Phantom. Now, you came down. That's right.
We do have it,
hold on just a second. Brian Christopher, you came down in the ring with you. It wasn't a wooden guitar. It was a metal guitar. And if Jerry would have been 5 or maybe 10 seconds late, no, I might have been permanently injured, or you would have tried to put me in the hospital. And that was your intention, and I'm sure of that. But Jerry came down there and he got the guitar, and that's how I ended up with it. Now you say you do have the tape?
Yeah, we do have it. You
well,
want to
that's
look
good.
at it?
Brian Christopher, film clips do not lie. Take a look, pal.
So Jeff, he just shuts Dave Brown down. He's like, hold on.
Shut the fuck up, Dave. I'm gonna narrate this. You ain't got I love how everyone just assumes that the TV company doesn't have the film.
There's
Like
no
both...
way in hell y'all have a clip of this. Actually, we tend to keep all that. Oh shit, let's see it. Yeah. So we're going to see a clip of what Jeff Jarrett's so mad about. But the main reason I want to show this clip is because I want the two of you to see what Bert Prentice and the Rock and Roll Phantom are up to before every match the Phantom wrestles on in the arenas and the spot shows. This is what they do. And I've heard, and read in his book, this is some of Bert Prentice's favorite stuff he's ever done. And you can tell old Don Bass is having a good time too. And then after that part of the clip, we'll see why Jeff Jarrett is so pissed off. And I don't know if you guys know this, but if there's one thing you shouldn't do, don't piss him off. You should probably put that on a shirt or something, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Sends Prentice upside down in the corner. Goes out to Rock and Roll Phantom. Slams him into the corner. Now there's Jarrett. Runs him to the other side and slams the Phantom. Right from Jeff. Oh, and here comes Mike Samples down the ringside. Holding Jeff. Jarrett gets out of the way, and the Phantom catches Samples. Jeff's got it rolled up. 1, 2. Oh, he kicks out at 2. And here comes Samples and Prentice. And the referee calls for the bell. 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Referee Frank Morrell calls for the bell. Oh, boy. What's that good time Brian Christopher's got? Jeff Jarrett right in the ribs Samples with that guitar. Samples and Prentice holding Jeff. Christopher again with the end of that guitar. Boy, that's a mellow guitar he's got in there. Well, big electric guitars, and here comes the king, Jarrett Lawler. He picks up that guitar.
the guitar drinking game.
I was just about to say, Corey must have been getting paid by how many times he could say guitar that night. So, okay. So, folks, if you're just listening to the audio version of this, you heard like an awkwardly long time of just faintly hearing Garth Brooks's Friends in Low Places. If YouTube didn't pull it, but if they haven't, you need to check this out. Because Bert Prentice is in there lip syncing, he's dancing. Don Bass is playing the guitar, as Corey Macklin would say. Last week, they went as far as to have Mike Samples holding a microphone up to the Rock and Roll Phantom as he lip synced while faking playing the guitar while Bert was lip syncing. And I mean, I think you can have all this wrestling shit. That's what Bert out there lip syncing and dancing and all that. That's what I'm sure he had more fun doing that than any of this other wrestling business out there. I mean, look at these two. I mean, he's getting after it, son.
Oh man, Josh was popping big over here for it.
Dude, you could tell he had so much fun. Like that's me on a big wheel going down a hill at 4 years old. Just the most, you could see it in his face. He was in fucking heaven, man.
Oh yeah, it's fun stuff. And from what I hear, like the whole time the Rock and Roll Phantom existed, that's what they did, whether it was, a spot show in West Point, Mississippi in front of 50 people or at the Mid-South Coliseum. They would go lip sync there a whole, Billy Ray Cyrus or Garth Brooks or whoever, and he'd put on a whole show and sometimes more than one song. So that's hilarious to me. And so there you see, Jeff was about to pin the Rock and Roll Phantom, of course. Samples and Prentice hit the ring, and then Brian comes down and gets the guitar, and he's about to get up on the second rope and murder Jeff Jarrett, and Jerry Lawler makes the save. So now we'll go back to Jeff and Jerry Lawler, and they have a few more words to say. Lawler. We'll start this off with, like I say, a pretty hilarious line in my opinion, from Jeff, if you taken out of context. And then we have a pretty fun exchange where Lawler invites Luger out here, and basically, shows everybody for a few minutes here how Luger is completely superior to him and Jarrett in every way. But it's pretty fun because, I mean, I'm sure he told Luger, "Hey, we're going to call you out here," but I don't think Luger knew exactly what all was going to happen. Because when Lawler pulls out this measuring tape, Luger, you can tell, is genuinely amused by most of this. So let's take a look at this real quick.
And when I do, I'm going to break you open like a hot biscuit, boy. And I can't wait for Monday night. How tall are you really, Lex? How tall are you?
Around 6'5".
6'5". Yeah. I'm 6 foot tall, and I thought that was pretty tall, but you are tall. And you say face to face, but I mean, I can't really look. I mean, if I looked you straight, I'm just like look at your neck or something. They're like, and I'm serious. I just want you to one time. I mean, because let's face it. Look at this. I'm almost embarrassed to be standing here next to this guy because look at that impressive physique. That is the most impressive looking physique that I believe I've ever seen in professional wrestling. Look at this. Look at the massive chest. Matter of fact, how can you do that? Look, I don't want to do it because it's embarrassing, but I mean, look at that. Lex, how big do you think those biceps are?
I really don't have any idea. I just everything I have is just phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. Wait a minute.
I don't need a tape measure.
Hang on just a second. Look, I just happen to have a tape measure right here. Do the muscle again. No, it's not a trick. Do the muscle. Do it up. Do it big. Holy mackerel, wait a minute. That is 21.5 inches around his bicep. Don't measure mine, please.
Can you do like how you guys do with the big chest and everything? Can you do
Like a lat spread?
what's it called?
A lat spread?
A lat spread. Lat spread. Make it like you make your chest real big. Well, wait a minute. Here. Hang on a second. Watch out, watch out.
Wait. Is it up here? Is that only a 60-inch tape?
Yeah.
Better not go around.
It is 57 inches. 57 inches around his chest. I gotta admit, Jeff, I am so impressed with this man's body. This is truly a perfect body, and you know, there's not a flaw or blemish on it, is it?
He is truly impressed with this man's body. But I mean, you can see his face right there. He's not lying. He definitely is.
Corey looks unimpressed there for a minute.
He looks.
I mean, here's the
that clip there, but
here's the question: Do you look at a man that keeps a tape measure in his tights like you do if you happen to wander into your friend's house and there's a ruler in his bathroom? It's like it's the same thing, right?
It does seem a bit suspect.
I'm Luger. You trying to trick me, ain't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Brian's over hollering, it's a trick, it's a trick. And so after what we saw there, Lawler steps away and shows a highlight reel of him throwing fireballs at people, numerous people throughout the years, which I'm guessing is probably a pretty foreign concept to Luger. I mean, other than Gilbert threw a fireball at a Clash of the Champions one time in like 89, but otherwise we weren't throwing a lot of fireballs over in WCW. So I'm sure he's wondering what the hell he's got himself into as he sees that clip.
The greatest part about that was Jerry Lawler's like, we can't out wrestle you, we can't out strength you, but we're going to commit a felony to get you down to our. Like he could have just basically said, hey, watch yourself because we're going to slit your throat or shoot you. It's the same thing. We're going to use a weapon against you. And then,
I almost
of course,
feel like maybe it's addressing what fans already assumed was like, all right, well, you know, these guys can't beat this big WWF superstar. So it's like, no, we're not going to try to beat him. Just come see me burn his ass. You know, Monday night. See his perfect body get scarred up Monday night. Well, how about that? So,
Brian's reaction to it was great, though. It comes back and they're going to burn you, Lex. They're going to burn you. It's like, whoa, like that's awesome. Like Brian was selling it more than Lex was.
Yeah, I should have grabbed a clip of that. One little thing in there, I don't know if you noticed this, when Lawler took the measurement of the lat spread, he makes a sound. He goes, and he sounded like Brian. It sounded just like Brian's laugh. I don't know if anything gave him away as Lawler's or as Brian's dad more than him having that exact same sound come out of him at the side of the tape measure.
You know, Luger's reaction to it, though, it did pop me whenever I was rewatching it because I forgot that he had said this, but they said, you know, Brian's like, they're going to burn you, Lex, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, that's not going to happen. If anybody tries to do that to me, they're dead men. And then the camera cuts. I'm like, damn. All right. Lex ain't playing no bullshit.
Yeah, I feel like
body,
like when he came through that curtain, like, I don't know what y'all got planned for Monday night, but no, we're not doing that bullshit.
Especially since the clips of all the fireballs look like tragedies. Like,
oh yeah, they stay hooked on them.
Yeah, like he threw one and it like burned the Leatherface guy, like caught his smock on fire and
stuff. On fire, literally. Yeah, I can't imagine. Like once he saw that video, you're gonna be like, "No, Lex, it's not a big deal. It's a work." Like, no, I saw that video.
It's a working fireball, brother. Don't worry.
Just don't mention this to Vince, okay?
Yeah.
Get a phone call. You're not burning Lex, pal. God damn it.
We don't have any aloe on the Lex Express. Not doing it.
So then we see a repeat of last week's new PG-13 rap video that we showed here on the show. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it features at one point Wolfie D calling Jeff Jarrett a Twizzot in Kearney on live Memphis television. And the most fun thing about that is it was revealed in my interview last week with Wolfie D that Jerry Jarrett fed him that line. Like when they were getting ready to write this rap, he's like, you know, I want you to do something. You can call call Jeff a twat in there, but in Carney, because I was getting ready to ask him if he got in trouble for that, and he's like, yeah, Jarrett told me to call Jeff a twat and Carney in there.
I love how he called out your uncle too for being
Over the hill.
Over the hill, and he's like, is he a nightmare or an eagle? Was it known that he was one of the American Eagles at the time?
I think by then they had been him and Dundee got unmasked as the Eagles. I'm pretty sure that didn't come after this. I see so much of this stuff out of order. I forget what came before what. I'm thinking that they got unmasked as the Eagles before Bill left to go to WCW. I'm pretty sure.
I know for sure going into the Halloween season of this same year in '93, though, they had like a bunch of matches, American Eagles versus PG-13. So like maybe they were hoping everybody forgot. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Uncle Danny didn't love getting called over the hill, but Wolfie was very. If folks, if you hadn't heard or seen that interview yet, it was last week's episode as this airs. Wolfie was very complimentary of Danny Davis and how much he helped those guys and how much they learned from him about working, tag team matches and just working in general. We dug really deep into the origins of PG-13 and the beginnings of them coming into USWA. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you check it out. Great interview. Wolfie's such a good guy, and he really got into it and let us know all the ins and outs of how PG-13 came to be, and we talked about a lot of fun stuff. So if you missed that one, make sure you check it out. And then we hear about Monday night's card is being referred to as the night of 29 stars, followed by an annoying promo that ends up running 2 or 3 more times in the final quarter of the show here. What a random
29 of them.
And I might be wrong. Was that not Uncle Danny doing the voiceover?
No.
It sounded like him, that voice.
It's
the
not.
night of 29.
There's a production guy that worked for Memphis for I think a long time. It's that guy.
Okay.
But my thought was like, nobody's going to count them. Y'all couldn't have just either shoehorned one more or just said 30. Yeah. Like, why 29? Yeah. Like, I would have said 30. Make it a nice even number. But the night of 29 stars. Like,
it's probably really
all right, guys. If it was only 28 stars, I'm staying home. But if they got 29, we got to see this shit. Let's go.
And half of those stars were probably just duplicates that wore masks for another match, anyways.
Oh, for sure. Most definitely. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Clyde probably played more than one of them. If I had to guess. But so her next match, we got Jeff Jarrett taking on Reggie B. Fine. Fun little match between these two. Ends with a flying crossbody. I guess Reggie didn't want to try to take the leaping DDT, or they knew that Richard was coming back this week and make fun of it. I don't know. We didn't get the leaping DDT this week, and that's a shame. But anyway, we see it. We didn't have. I didn't get any clips of that match because it's a pretty standard match. We'll be seeing a lot more Reggie B. Fine in the future, and we've seen quite a bit of Jeff Jarrett so far. But what we did get to see immediately following is another of the night of 29 stars promos.
This time with commentary.
Yeah, this time we name the 29 stars, or at least a good chunk of them, as many of them as we could give names to so far.
It felt like sometimes, though, they were getting lost on who the stars were. Like
yeah.
Lauren,
they would pop up and they would look at each other like, I don't know who that is, Dave. Was that the Rock and Roll Phantom? I can't see from
guy
this
in
side.
the zebra pants, guy who plays the guitar, not honky tonk man. So
who's that other one? Oh damn, it's gone now.
Not Doug, not Don. I mean, Rock
Billy Joe
Phantom.
Travis.
Billy Joe Travis. He got out of jail. All right, guys, it's time for our main event. We're going to go to a well we've gone to before recently. We're going to see Jerry the King Lawler taking on Jeff Gaylord. I know you guys are psyched for that, right? Let's take a little look at this. It was a pretty short. The match portion of this was pretty short. It was kind of had some some spot show screwing around, it felt like. And then, of course, we get down to the real meat and potatoes of the match because, since we've been watching USWA in this era, these matches only serve one sole purpose. We got to have a run-in, guys.
I think Bert Prentice thought Lawler had a hold to him over there. Gaylord grabbed him by his jacket then. Prentice got his stammer. Oh, yeah, now he goes over.
Oh, look at this. Look at Prentice interfere. He's got, that's Prentice's hand. He's holding Lawler back in the corner.
Hey, come on, Bert, would you? Yeah, now he goes trying to run around the ring after grabbing. Yeah, Lawler's explaining to referee Kevin Christian.
Right on it. You saw exactly what happened. Lawler, he said he saw Brian Christopher over by the curtain. I see the curtain moving.
Yeah.
Back to action here. Oh, look out. In the ring, it is Brian Christopher.
Whoa! Yeah, but, oh, boy. Well, Christopher kind of stunned at Lawler. So it goes in. He gets out of the way, and Christopher catches Gaylord. And Lawler nails away on Christopher. Look out, King. Gaylord drops down, double right hand.
Prentice is holding the referee over in the corner to keep him out of the action, to try to keep him from separating everything.
Yeah, here comes help, though. Jeff Jarrett pumps in. Help the King out. While Prentice has got referee Kevin Christian holding on to Kevin over here. Jeff Jarrett slamming away on Christopher and Gaylord, and boy, they get out of there.
That's what kind of tag team you got as Jeff Jarrett arrives. Brian Christopher, Jeff Gaylord, and Prentice leave. Look out, here comes Lex Luger. Here's Eddie Marlin getting in between them. We better take a break before something gets started here. We'll be back.
Lex taking a shit late to the party.
Yes.
He was old as fuck when he came out there, though.
I feel like he got there and they're like, okay, well, to follow our pattern of, people running in to set up matches, like, Lex, what if we had you and Lawler do like a little short thing here in the main event? And he's like, no, all I brought was these acid wash jeans and the same windbreaker. And they're
I
like,
get no char marks on that.
That's why he
we can do the same exact thing with Jeff Gaylord. It's totally fine. And then just if you could you just walk out at the end, like, he's not going to throw a fireball at me, is he? If he throws a fireball at me, I'm not showing up Monday night. Like, no.
Yeah.
So he strolls out. We go to commercial, and we've had. Were there any? Well, Gilbert pinned Mr. Clyde before the run-in happened, but in true USWA fashion, almost every match has ended with a run-in to set up what we've got coming up. So let's take our second and final podcast commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to let Dave and Corey let us know what this is all building up to and let us know the exact card for the night of 29 stars right after this commercial break.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
All right. We hear from our friend Ray Russell about WrestleCopia. We're proud to be a part of WrestleCopia. And let's hear now what this has all been building up to, what the card's going to be based on everything we've seen here today for Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum.
29 stars. Opening match, the Night Stalker will be going against Scott Campione in the opener. Following that, you got Leslie Bellinger going against Regina Hale. Should be a good one there. Aaron Hatchett will take on one of the Masters of Terror in a single match. Ms. Texas will be there. She'll be going against Candy Kane. Then PG-13, as we talked a little bit earlier, that team that turned out to be a little bit surprising. They've got some moves, as Corey pointed out. They got an attitude, though. They'll be going against Danny Davis and his partner Chris Michaels in tag team action. Jeff Gaylord will climb into the ring. The Missouri Tiger, you just saw him against Lawler. By the way, Lawler technically won that match.
Yeah.
The interference by Christopher, the referee, disqualified Gaylord, so Lawler gets the win. But Gaylord will be stepping in against Dr. Tom Pritchard. That should be a great match to see.
Yes, sir.
Monday night at the Coliseum during the night of 29 stars. The Rock and Roll Phantom will bring the guitar and Bert Prentice to ringside. The only thing I can hope is that we would be spared with that alleged concert of Bert Prentice and Rock and Roll Phantom, but I doubt it, knowing Prentice. If you can put up with a concert, get ready, because the Dutchman, Dirty Dutch Mantell out of Oil Trough, Texas, will be there, and he will be taking care of business, I guarantee you, as he steps in against the Rock and Roll Phantom. Following that, you got the return grudge match. Corey, this one.
Look out for this one.
Yeah, this one is not the same match that we thought it was just a few moments ago. Doug Gilbert came out here with what we felt was a sincere apology to Eddie, and he had promised his mom he would not raise his fist against his brother and all that. Didn't really want this match to occur. And then comes out here and eggs on the Harris brothers and all of that as they jump Eddie Gilbert, and 3 against 1 at one point beat him up here in the ring. Eddie will be looking to get even with Doug Gilbert in this return grudge match Monday night at the Coliseum. Richard Lee's hair is going to be on the line. They'll have folks right there at ringside ready to cut the hair if the Moondogs lose it. Ron and Don Harris, the Bruise Brothers, the USWA World Tag Team Champions, with Mike Samples in their corner. Richard Lee's hair on the line, but the Harris Brothers titles are also on the line. Then the main event of the night. Get ready for it, fans. You got Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett. Tag team that never backed up from a challenge at all. But on the other side, you got Bert Prentice, you got Brian Christopher, and Christopher has secured as his partner the Narcissist, the man that even Jerry Lawler says has an almost perfect physique, Lex Luger. It should be some kind of night. The night of 29 stars, Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Did you count along to make sure we was totaling up 29 there, guys?
Well, I mean, I was just impressed that they went and got Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Somehow they paroled that man to get him there, and I guess they were cashing in on that Night Stalker fame.
We're going to talk a little more about the Night Stalker here in a minute, but before we get there, it's the all-important time, guys. It's when I ask you the 3 questions that all this is building towards. So, having watched today's episode, number 1, what is your least favorite part of today's show?
I would have to say the matches. I mean, just not
just all the matches.
Just the matches.
Now, bear in mind, folks, in the past, Richard has told us his least favorite part of the show was all the talking and there wasn't enough matches. But today's matches were so poor. He's like, just the matches.
Just the
all
matches.
the matches. Anything that happened in the ring was just not good.
Just not good. If there was a ref in there, shit was happening that I was not interested in. No, I mean, it was just, I didn't feel like we ever had a quality match. You know what I mean? And it's like just the lack of those real finishes. The Doug one, not Doug, but Eddie winning his match was awesome, but you knew that was going to happen. There was no chance of that. Thinking about Mr. Clyde pulling off an upset win over Eddie, that wasn't going to happen. So, I mean, it was just the matches disappointed me this week. The build-ups were great, but the matches just left a little something to be desired for me.
All right, so not a lot of mystery here, but let's hear it anyway. Josh, what was your least favorite part of today's show?
I don't think I got to wade too deep into this shit.
You ain't got to go as deep as that V on Mike Samples' vest.
No. But, yeah, Harris Brothers versus Clark the Shark and Boondock Bill, whatever those people, Bill Richards and Greg Richards, whatever their names were, it didn't matter. It was just punch, kick, punch, kick, punch, kick, punch, kick, double kick, done.
Leg drop, shitty leg drop. I forgot the shitty leg drop.
Either way, fucking horrible, always horrible. Same bullshit over and over and over. They're like just. You know how like a lot of times Bret Hart would just have the same goddamn match over and over. If it didn't really mean shit, it was just a random jobber, he'd do the same shit over and over. They're like that, but with like a tenth of the talent.
They sell you a timeshare.
Now listen, I'll put up with you coming on here shitting on the Harris Brothers every week. I'm okay with that. But when you start dragging Bret Hart through the mud, sir,
no. I was saying that. I love Bret Hart, but even in those matches, he was still good. But they're doing the same formula with bad ingredients.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The repetitiveness.
Yeah. I mean, this show's repetitive by nature, but like I said, I have completely quit showing clips to the point Ray was a little upset that I didn't show a clip the week that he was on of the Doink show, because they did do a spot where they like backdropped Todd Johnson on the floor, and then it didn't go right. He didn't take it right. So then one shot him into the other. And he clotheslined him so hard he cut him for a flip. By that point, though, I'd just gotten so used to just not clipping the Harris Brothers match. I didn't even clip none of it. He's like, "You didn't put that in?" I was like, "No, I just stopped clipping the Harris Brothers matches." He's like, "How many of these can we watch?" And he's like, "Man, that was actually pretty wild." And I was like, "Oh, well, shit."
How many clips of the Harris Brothers beating a Johnson do you need?
Yeah, I mean, and now that was a pretty wild clip. I almost wanted to just take the clip of him nearly killing that guy on the floor and just every week subbing in the spot in the show where the Harris Brothers match is, just showing that one clip and like, oh, there you go.
Yeah,
that's the best. That's the best of the Harris Brothers right there. All right, so we got past our weekly dunking on the Bruise Brothers from Josh. So let's go to the second question. Maybe a little harder. I don't know. What was your favorite part of this week's show?
I was a Lex Luger fan growing up, and it was really cool to see him there. Like I said, it was like a clash of worlds. You didn't see WCW guys all that much, and even though Lex had been in WWF for a little while at this point, he was a WCW guy. So seeing Lex there and seeing how Brian put him over, just like you were saying earlier, just excited Brian was. At one time when they were measuring his arm and they shoot over to Brian and he's just like just so much excitement. It was just I thought that whole thing was just great. It was the best part of the show for me.
On last week's show, not to interrupt you, Josh, but real quick, my favorite part of last week's show, as Lex is starting to unzip the windbreaker, Brian's like, "They don't deserve it, Lex. They don't deserve it, Lex." And he's so hyped up. It's just, oh yeah, it's great. I'm sorry, Josh. Go ahead.
No, you're good, man. So mine, I really, really, really enjoyed watching back the Jeff Jarrett versus Reggie B. Fine match. It felt like kind of like something that you would see on just a random ass, Ripley, Tennessee card or something where they get out there and just do whatever they wanted to do. Reggie's talking about they pulling my hair, and that hair comment cracked up both Corey and Dave. Like they laughed extensively and for like extended period of time about the hair pull, and it just tickled the shit out of me as well. And they didn't really do much of anything, but it was entertaining. And that's what I like, man. You don't have to do much, but whatever you do, be very entertaining at it. And dude, Reggie be fine, man, for his lack of just. He's not Billy Robinson, you know what I mean? But he can make you laugh. I love that kind of shit, man.
Oh yeah, Reggie always was a standout for me in USWA as just being super entertaining. Whether it was just a match like that it's just a squash match, it really isn't supposed to mean anything, but he finds a way to get something in that stands out, that's fun. And
it
then
really
once he starts
didn't.
getting to do promos and shit through the years, and it really, picks up. I mean,
But that's a great point. It was a squash match, but it didn't appear to be because it really
no,
didn't bury him, you know?
he to me, and we probably could find some people from USWA era to co-sign this. I think he got himself over, like he earned his way out of being an enhancement guy because he was he was so entertaining. They're like, let's do something with him. Like, hell, why are we wasting him out there putting people over when, and he still continued to, I mean, he pretty much through most of his career, he put people over, but now he also beat Lawler for the damn unified title at some point, I mean, but no matter what he was doing, he found a way to make it entertaining, and that was the secret to wrestling in the end. A lot of people are like, well, you got to figure out how to kiss the right butts and all that, and yeah, there's an element of that, but Reggie just found a way to, whatever they gave him to do, he made it as entertaining as he possibly could. And a lot of times, like this little spot with the hair thing in the comment, like more entertaining than it had any right to be. And people start to, even if he's a bad guy, they don't like him, if somebody makes you laugh or you find them amusing, you want to see them, whether you want to see them get beat or whether you want to see them win, you want to see them. Yeah. And I mean, you fast forward all the way up to the feud with Coco, where he did the bit where he, allegedly deep fried Frankie. That's some of the funniest stuff they ever did on there. And I've heard Reggie say in interviews that Lance Russell was appalled by that whole thing because he tried to insist to Lance that he really deep fried a parrot.
I loved being around, like, because Reggie was working for Memphis when I was there, and Reggie was just as entertaining in the back. Like, it wasn't, there was no off switch. I remember there was one time, like 5 or 6 of us were laughing because he was getting on Jerry Calhoun about how slow his count was.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, Calhoun, could you not speed that count up a little bit? He's like, I'm gonna have to shave in between the 1 and the 2. just stuff like that. It was like, man, this guy's hilarious. Of course,
not a lot of people know this, but about a year ago, I almost started doing a weekly podcast with Reggie B. Fine. Me and him had several conversations about it. We just never could get together on when we could record. But I mean, I was amused just talking to this dude on the phone. Like, I mean, talking to Reggie on the phone is just like Reggie you hear in promos. He would say all the same wild shit, and I was entertained just talking to the guy. We never did record a damn thing, but he was funny to talk to. But anyway, let's get to the third question. If we were in 1993 right now, would today's program have convinced you to go buy a ticket to see this card on Monday night? I mean, come on, guys. It's a night of 29 freaking stars.
I mean, it would have been 29 stars, but it would have been just 1 star for me. Lex Luger. You know what I mean? I'd want to see Luger, and now I want to see him freak out to get burned. Like, younger me would have been like, oh, they're going to throw Fireball that night. Older me, knowing what I know now and reading Steve Austin's book where he was talking about how, he'd always like kind of look at them like crazy when they got color or something. It's like, I can't imagine he took this news well. You know what I mean? So it's like, I want to know what happened. I want to go. If I could go back in time, that would be where I'd want to go just to see what happens in that main event. Do they throw the fire? Do they not? Does Lex even show up? That's that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm going just on that main event push.
And I think that's the genius of Lawler airing that video, because I think he knows that most people are going to think this is a tag team match. It's going to be some bullshit disqualification. There's probably not going to be a clear-cut winner because they've been DQing us to death. We can skip this one. But then that shred of doubt that we might see Lex Luger get burned up with a fireball. I don't know, guys. We might need to see this. Josh, where are you at on it?
Dude, they really put that over, and that was my second favorite part of the show was the Brian Christopher, Prentice, Luger, and Jarrett and Lawler, just that whole promo and incident. Because honestly, man, that was one of my when I think back to what are like some of my favorite points of Memphis wrestling, the promo videos, getting shit over. They work so well in Memphis, better than any other promotion I think that they ever did videos, as far as I'm concerned. But like Richard said, they made it, but they made you believe that there was a very big possibility that Lex Luger was going to get his perfect body blemished, and I would want to go because usually when Lawler says something to that effect of "I'm going to burn your ass," somebody's getting on fire. It may be Bert taking the fireball. It may be Brian Christopher going to take the fireball, but somebody is going to get their ass burned up, and I want to see it.
Good call. Now we don't so far in this show we don't ever turn these questions back around on me, but I'm going to say my least favorite part of the show was all the DQs in the matches. My favorite part of the show was getting to see the clip of Bert and the Rock and Roll Phantom rocking out before the Jarrett and Rock and Roll Phantom match. And yes, I would definitely have to buy a ticket just on the off chance that we might see Lex Luger get hit with a fireball. And being a big fan of the Gilberts at the time, I would have wanted to see how this thing played out with Eddie and Doug. And I'm also a big fan of Dutch Mantel, so I would have been curious about Dutch being there. And I mean, who doesn't want to see the 537th match between the Moondogs and the Harris Brothers? Who knows what could possibly happen? The belts might change hands. They have every other week for the last 14 weeks. So let's go. February 22nd, 1993, Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. Unfortunately, we do not have the attendance for this one, which bums me out. But opening match, the Night Stalker beat Scott Campione. Now, most people listening to this look at the time frame of this and think the Night Stalker, probably Brian Clark. No, it wasn't Brian Clark. It was Tony Falk in a mask. Sorry to disappoint you. I think by this point, Brian Clark's already doing Adam Bomb. He had moved on from the Night Stalker.
Yeah.
If not, he's about to. Leslie Ballinger beat Regina Hale. I don't know if that was Randy Hale in drag or if that was someone else. I don't remember. I don't remember Regina Hale at the time. So
it's a tall woman.
We'll assume that maybe Leslie Ballinger. The Master of Terror defeated Hurricane Hatchet. Miss Texas defeated Candy Kane, and the way it was spelled, Candy Kane, I just picture Kane like Glenn Jacobs in dressed like a peppermint, like he was for the Christmas creature.
That's a stripper that Lawler burned.
But I'm sure you're probably pretty dead on right there that was a stripper that someone met close by. In the fifth match, PG-13 defeated Nightmare Danny Davis and Chris Michaels. In the sixth match, I find this interesting because when you look at the time frame, we're in February of 1993. So at this point, Dr. Tom Pritchard is one half of the Heavenly Bodies as a heel in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. But here, he's against Jeff Gaylord, so I think by default that makes him a babyface. Dr. Tom Pritchard defeats Jeff Gaylord via disqualification. And again, why couldn't he just win? Why we gotta have disqualification? But anyway, the Rock and Roll Phantom with Bert Prentice defeats Dirty Dutch Mantel.
Ooh.
In the eighth match, the grudge match, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert beats the King of Rock and Roll, Doug Gilbert, via countout. So I'm assuming Doug may have walked out of this one or something. I don't know, but that means that feud is going to continue. Then, big surprise here, we had the tag team titles on the line versus Richard Lee's hair. The Moondogs, Spot and Splat with Richard Lee, managed to defeat the Harris Brothers to once again win the USWA tag team titles for the 497th time. And then in the main event, Lex Luger and Brian Christopher defeated Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett via disqualification when the King was disqualified for throwing a fireball that Lex Luger ducked and it hit the face of Brian Christopher. And after that, the Harris brothers hit the ring, and it was a big brawl in the ring, and that'll lead to other things next week. But yes, you won't have to. Usually, Josh, you would have been left hanging until we saw next week's episode. But I cheated and looked ahead because I wanted to know how this played out as well, and so that's what happened. Lawler pulls out a fireball, he throws it, and kudos to Luger. The timing was just right. He ducked, and it engulfed Brian's entire upper body. It was,
Jeez.
I guess Lawler must have pulled out a toilet paper size roll of flash paper.
If you imagine that would hit Luger, that would have hit Luger with all that oil on him. He'd still be burning.
He'd be fried.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he would have went up like Michael Jackson in that old Pepsi video back in the day. It would have been terrible. Well, all right, guys, it's been great to have you back. Yeah. So, folks, if you're watching, please rate, review, and leave us a comment wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. We'd greatly appreciate it. It helps things out a lot if you do that. If you're watching the video cast at YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video and leave us a comment there. We'd love to hear from you. Are you liking what we're doing? Are we are we being too silly with some of the stuff? What do you like? What do you don't like? I'm not telling we're going to change anything because I'm sorry.
Comment card.
You try to be serious about some of this shit, and let's see how it goes. That's all I can say. But P3 Radio, check out these guys' podcast. It's a lot of fun. It's the letter P, the number 3, and radio. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can listen to these guys each and every week. Because even when they weren't here, they went through the trouble of pre-recording episodes where they did not miss a week. You guys have consistently been pumping out episodes of P3 Radio for how long?
7, 8 years? How long have we been doing this?
It's been a long damn time.
So
August of 2017.
Holy, that's amazing. So that's awesome. And we plan to keep pumping out episodes of this podcast as we work our way through 93 and 94, 95 and 96. And
is there any chance of us circling back to 91, man? That is my golden
if you guys stick around and don't tire of this, I want to circle back to 91, and we can take a vote amongst the listeners at the end of this. At the end of 93, we could either circle back then and hit 91, 92, and then jump over 93 to 94, or we can move to through 94 and then go back. It don't matter. This shit all happened a long time ago, so we don't necessarily have to go in sequence. So we'll get through 93 and we'll figure it out from there. But yeah, I definitely want to hit all of them. I don't want to do 1990 because 1990 just quite frankly kind of sucked in the USWA. But more so than that, what footage is out there available it's really sketchy. There's not a lot of the Memphis stuff that's out there. It's more the Dallas end of things. It is really hard to find any 1990 Memphis TV. Now, if somebody was to come forward and be like, "Hey, I got the whole year," then we'll talk. But right now, I have managed to procure most of what I was missing from 94, and all but just a handful of 96. I've got all of 95. I've got all of 92. I've got almost all of 91. I'm getting there. So
there's I know one particular episode that's not on YouTube that I have a VHS of. I haven't uploaded anything because I'm not really sure on how to do all that yet.
I may have to get if we decide to do 91, I may have to get with you on that. If nothing else, I'll have you send me the tape and I can transfer it and put it on DVD and YouTube and all that.
It's just one from a random February in 91.
Nice. And remember, folks, we have a Facebook that we now almost have 2,700 followers on. We've been getting more people every week. A lot of good engagement from everybody. We appreciate everybody for participating over there and commenting and sharing the videos and the pictures and all the things that we do over there. We also have a Twitter and Instagram, TikTok. You can find all of it at USWApodcast.com. The links for everything we do is all right there. So rather than me sitting here each week rattling off what the handle is for all of them, just go to USWApodcast.com. You can find it all, including our store where you can find Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. You can find Moondog shirts, or all kinds of great stuff over there. So make sure you check that out. You can check out our YouTube channel where all these USWA TV episodes I was just referring to, the new ones I found, we've got, like I say, full years of USWA over at RetroWrestlingNetwork.com. And that link is also available at USWApodcast.com as well. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at USWApodcast@outlook.com. Guys, I've been getting a lot of great feedback via the email and the Facebook. Like, man, we've got folks listening over in the UK. I've heard from some folks in Australia. People from all over the place are listening to the podcast and they're enjoying it. I've got wrestlers reaching out that would like to come on and talk about their time in USWA. So really, really excited about the amount of feedback that we're getting. So you guys keep it coming. We really appreciate it. And, we started doing this just because we love USWA wrestling and we have fun talking about it. But to find out that you guys have fun listening to it, I mean, even better. So check out this and all the great podcasts over at WrestleCopia.com. Ray Russell has all kinds of great podcasts over there, not just about Memphis, but we've got the USWA in 93, we've got Memphis in 1985, but he's also got, Georgia 1981, UWF 1986. He's covering WWF in 1988 on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. He's got a Patreon that for just $5 a month, he puts out a ton of great content. So make sure you check all that out over at WrestleCopia.com. And last but not least, coming up in August, I'm going to be hosting a new podcast alongside this one, Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert. Each week, I'm going to be sitting down with Doug Gilbert, and me and him are going to be talking about his career, Eddie's career, his father, Tommy Gilbert. He's got a lot of friends in the business that he's already reached out to who are going to be looking to come on the podcast and talk with us about things as well. Should be a lot of fun. Should be pretty insightful because, as you guys know, Doug hasn't been doing a bunch of these podcasts. He's only done one shoot interview that I know of several years ago. So got a chance to hang out with Doug in Jonesboro at the Legends of Memphis Fan Fest. He's super excited about this project. He's got a ton of stories to tell. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I know I'm going to have some questions for him right out of the gate about some of what we've seen on recent Memphis television, because I really want to know all about this King of Rock and Roll thing and about this feud with Eddie that we're watching right now. So, guys, once again, it's great to have y'all back. Thank y'all for doing this, and I look forward to next week's episode, and we see what Brian Christopher has to say about getting his head set on fire. That should be fun.
Can't wait.
No, I remember exactly what happens. I can't wait either. It's great.
All right, folks. We'll check you back here next week. Remember, USWApodcast.com as well as WrestleCopia.com.